The president was in California this weekend touring the devastation from the state's deadly wildfires. He surveyed the damage with California Governor Jerry Brown and FEMA Administrator Brock Long. At one point, he was asked if seeing the devastation changed his views on climate change. Afterwards, he spoke about forest management.
That seems to be a very big problem, and we're going to get that problem solved. In the Farm Bill, we're putting quite a bit of money, about $500 million in the Farm Bill for management and maintenance of the forests beyond this area.
Does seeing this devastation, though, change your opinion at all on climate change, Mr. President?
No. I have a strong opinion. I want great climate. We're going to have that, and we're going to have forests that are very safe.
In an interview broadcast Sunday morning, the president was asked for his response to new information about the murder of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. He is also denying rumors that a cabinet shakeup could be coming. Our check on the Sunday morning talk show starts with his response to a question about his mood in the White House.
It's fake news. It's disgusting fake news. I read a front page story in the Washington Post. They never even call me. Nobody ever calls me. You know, they hear. I don't even think they have sources. I think they just make it up like it's fiction. And I will tell you, I'm extremely upbeat. The White House is running like a well-oiled machine. It's doing really well. I have great people.
Turkish President Erdogan says that he has shared a tape with the U.S. and other countries that is of the killing of Jamal Khashoggi inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Have you, one, either heard the tape yourself or been briefed on it? And if so, to your mind, what does it show?
We have the tape. I don't want to hear the tape. No reason for me to hear the tape.
Why don't you want to hear it, sir?
Because it's a suffering tape. It's a terrible tape. I've been fully briefed on it. There's no reason for me to hear it. In fact, I said to the people, should I? They said, you really shouldn't. There's no reason.
There are things that we're going to have to confront here soon, and I hope we do it based on the truth, not in something that we simply want to see because we have a lot invested in the relationship with the Crown Prince now.
If he is going to be the face and the voice of Saudi Arabia going forward, I think the kingdom will have a hard time on the world stage. They're an important ally, but when it comes to the Crown Prince, he's irrational. He's unhinged.
I'm glad that he's there. I'm glad that he is offering federal funds. That's what he should do. That's what a president is expected to do.
The president not only has signed a presidential declaration giving California substantial funding, but he said and pledged very specifically to continue to help us, that he's got our back. And I thought that was a very positive thing.
Zeke Miller joins me now from Washington. He's a White House reporter for the Associated Press, as well as a CBSN political contributor. All right, Zeke, the president said that his views on climate change have not changed since viewing the damage from the wildfires, and he called forest management a, quote, very big problem. Why is he standing so firm on this particular issue?
You know, this is one that the president hasn't been willing to budge on for years now, decades almost. He's been asked about this in public life in various contexts. He's waiting about the issue on Twitter, sort of touting conspiracy theories or minimizing generally accepted science on that for years. In part, they could stem from his actual belief, and also there's an element of political reality there for the president, where some elements of the Republican Party of his base are on climate change. They don't necessarily accepted science, and for them, for the president, it can be a bit of a political tool here, and the ability to blame forest management is something that in California, especially as a bit of a state issue, it allows them to try to offload some of the blame from federal policies to state-based leaders. So I think that's why we've seen the president move off of this. That said, when he has been pressed on this, drilled down in several interviews at times, he has budged, saying he does accept some of the science, but it's an area where we have not seen the president take the mantle of leadership on, for sure.
Well, President Trump met with California Congressman Kevin McCarthy while he was there. The Republican was elected to be the next House Minority Leader. What do we know about their relationship?
We know they're very close. The president certainly enjoys a much closer relationship with Kevin McCarthy than he does have with the Speaker Paul Ryan right now. They're political allies. Temperamentally, they are a little bit they're a little bit more on the same speed. Where it's a more genial relationship that's built on friendship rather than political alliance between the two of them. Kevin McCarthy has been a powerful surrogate for the president. The president believed his role on tax reform is one of the things that contributed to getting the Republican that bill through Congress. So it's a lot stronger relationship, and that the question for the Republicans broadly is not so much will they be on the same page with the House, will the president be on the same page with McCarthy. It's what will, as we saw last week with some criminal justice reform, is where will Mitch McConnell play into all of this as well, because the relationship between McCarthy and McConnell is one we haven't really seen tested yet, and that's going to be where some of that, and where the president fits into that as well. That's going to be determine the future of Republicans over the next couple of years.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting to watch. What about Democrats, Zeke? The president tweeted his support for House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi's bid for Speaker Saturday. He tweeted, quote, "She deserves this victory. She has earned it." He's, of course, been a frequent critic of the Congresswoman. Help us understand the dynamic here.
You can look at this on a number of different levels. First among them being that Nancy Pelosi, as the Democratic leader, did oversee the party successfully recapturing the House. And from the president's perspective, he's in some ways often the pundit in chief, and we've seen him try to call balls and strikes. And here he's saying, she accomplished what she set out to do. But there's another level that you sort of hinted at some of those, the president's frequent criticisms of Nancy Pelosi is that, even back in 2016 when the president was running against Hillary Clinton, another sort of boogeyman on for the Republican base, often you see in ads, they'd be running, particularly in House races, they'd be running Nancy Pelosi ads, not over Hillary Clinton. Nancy Pelosi is also a very powerful, potent boogeyman for the Republican base. The president would like to run against her essentially in 2020 and keep her around in the national conversation. So there's an element of political self-interest, but also the reality that Nancy Pelosi did have a very strong year, and from the president's perspective, should be rewarded as well. So there's self-interest, and then a bit of punditry as well.
Yeah, a lot of factors seem to be coming together in that tweet, Zeke. Switching gears, the president appeared on Fox News Sunday. He was asked about Matthew Whitaker. The newly appointed acting attorney general will oversee the special counsel's investigation, but he's also a known critic of Mueller. Let's listen.
If Whitaker decides in any way to limit or curtail the Mueller investigation, are you okay with that?
Look, it's going to be up to him. I think he's very well aware politically. I think he's astute politically. He's a very smart person, a very respected person. He's going to do what's right. I really believe he's going to do what's right.
But you won't overrule him if he decides to curtail.
I would not get involved.
So, Zeke, given that, what are you hearing? Are Democrats gearing up to challenge Whitaker's appointment?
Yeah, Democrats are obviously gearing up to challenge Whitaker's appointment over how the president put him there, that he's not a Senate-confirmed. When he was the chief of staff of the Justice Department, he was not Senate confirmed, so he's now the acting attorney general and has never been, and without the advice and consent of the Senate. So there's an existing legal challenge brought by the state of Maryland. We'll probably see some challenges from lawmakers on the Hill as well. And that parallel effort also to potentially bring forward some legislation to try to protect Robert Mueller. That doesn't seem to be too keen on getting past the Senate, with McConnell saying he doesn't really see a path forward or need for it. But it's really interesting hearing the president talk about Whitaker's credentials, and he says he's very astute politically in that interview. And he's generally we don't think of the attorney general as a political role. It's the top criminal justice role in the country. And so the fact that the president brought that up was kind of interesting. But also the implication there as well was if Whitaker is astute politically, it would be an indication that this investigation would probably continue, because the politics for the president, for the Republican Party, for Whitaker ending that investigation prematurely would be absolutely horrendous for the president and his party.
Meantime, Zeke, White House Chief of Staff John Kelly is reportedly trying to convince the president not to fire his Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen. However, Kelly himself is on the chopping block too, according to many reports. Will his efforts help or hurt Nielsen with the president?
Well, in the short term, they appear to have succeeded. But last week, it seemed a change in the Department of Homeland Security was imminent. What we've been told is that there's been the conversations inside the West Wing have focused on not so much of whether to replace Nielsen. The president seems to be pretty set on that, but particularly Kelly's been telling the president and others around him that you can't make that change now. Obviously, he and Nielsen are very closely allied, and so there's some self-interest there and their personal friendship that's leading to him to lobbying to keep her around longer. But also, she doesn't have a confirmed deputy. The line of succession within that department is very thin right now from the White House perspective. So the lobbying to the president has been you need to keep Nielsen because there is no one to take over and run that critical national security job in the interim. So it is kind of it's not somebody. Will Nielsen leave in the new year? Probably at some point, but they have to get a deputy in there and maybe do some other work on the line of succession before that can potentially happen, and that's a large part because of Kelly's lobbying.
Well, finally, Zeke, you've reported on a, quote, political veteran at age 36 who's a potential replacement for the chief of staff. Who is this contender, and does he have a viable chance?
Well, this is Nick Ayers, who's currently the chief of staff for the Vice President Mike Pence. He's a longtime Republican operative, which is kind of, you'd think it's a bit of an oxymoron because he's so young. But really, if you look at, he's run a presidential campaign. He ran the Republican Governors Association through some of its most successful cycles, and then for the last 18 months has been the right-hand man to the vice president. He's very close to President Trump, so there are indications, and there have been conversations between the two of them about him stepping up to becoming the White House chief of staff. Talking to people who know Nick Ayers, they say he manages up very well, and that's something the president is looking for. But the challenge for Ayers, like for Kelly, like for Reince Priebus before him, is that managing the president in this White House, in this particular White House, has proved to be a very difficult task. So Ayers is probably somebody who would be prepared for that job, given his credentials. But it's hard to say, with the President Trump not changing, it's still going to be a very challenging road ahead for him should he get it.
All right, Zeke Miller in Washington for us. Zeke, thank you.
Thank you.